Hey, let's thank. There you go. Let's thank. Ta-da.
Welcome.
Welcome, lovely.
Welcome, lady. Don't make me laugh, my head is really sore. Last weekend after I left here, I went home, I fed my cats, and as I turned around, not realising that my cats had spilled water, I hit the deck.
Oh.
Head first onto cement.
Oh.
That's why I've got this beauty here. So if I don't seem quite with it, just bear with me because my head is drilling me right now. I just come out of hospital last night because of my head. I've been in and out of hospital for the last week, every single day, getting it scanned, making sure I haven't got any blood, brain bleed or anything. I've got no broken bones, so very, very lucky. What are we doing? Oh yeah, acknowledgement.
You're doing whatever it is you do.
Don't make me laugh. Acknowledgement. I like, sorry about the hesitation. I like to acknowledge the land on which we meet, and welcome to all out there too. I like to acknowledge the land on which we meet, the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I like to acknowledge the past, present and future, and welcome all here today. And all my Aboriginal brothers, sisters and Torres Strait Islanders brothers, sisters here today. Thank you for putting up with this terrible acknowledgement, and have a beautiful day, and thank you for wearing masks, and be safe everyone out there and here. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, sit down, Lonnie. Don't stand. Sit down and have a drink of water. Okay, thanks. There's no such thing as a terrible acknowledgement from you, sis. It's really precious. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Right. Good to be back with everyone. Good to be back here. It's for those of you who know her, little Joycey's birthday today. She is not here with us, so she's at home, about to head off to Frozen the musical, which, you know, as a 6-year-old, that's got to be the height of amazing when you go to your first performance like that. So our thoughts with her, but we have Marley and Sienna here with us. Hey girls, how are you? Yeah, they're thrilled to be acknowledged. That's good. All right. Let's open in a word of prayer. I'm feeling very overwhelmed and overjoyed to see everyone here. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for wearing your masks. Is the aircon working?
Yes, put it on high.
We put it on as high as it can go. So Emma, don't sit underneath it. All right.
Try not to.
We try not to. Good, hiding there. All right. We've got some amazing things for today. We've got David's coming to sing because we're still not allowed to sing as a group yet. I'm fingers crossed those restrictions will be eased in the next few days, but until then we're still sticking with it for now. And then we're going to also hear from Karan, and that's going to be something I've been talking about for the last few weeks online, and looking forward to hearing a bit more about her and her story. So let's open with our word of prayer. Let's bow our heads. My eyes are not haughty, my heart is not proud. I do not concern myself with things too marvellous or great for me. Instead, I've quieted and calmed my soul, like a weaned child that knows that all is well when Mama is in view. Oh God, for the wisdom of that child we now ask. Amen. Thanks, everyone. Now we will have our psalm being read to us by Brother Josh. Get up here, bro. Now we can't do the call and response, so Brother's just going to read the whole thing. Okay. Excellent. The mic's there.
You can say that. Today's psalm is Psalm 111. Hallelujah. I will exalt the Lord with all my heart, in the council of the upright and in the assembly. Great are the works of the Lord, they are founded by all who delighted in them. Glorious and majestic are his deeds, and his righteousness endures forever. He has caused his wanderers to remember the Lord is gracious and compassionate. He provides food for those who fear him. He remembers his covenant forever. The works of his hands are faithful and just. All his precepts are trustworthy. They are established forever and ever, enacted in faithfulness and uprightness. He provided redemption for his people. He ordained his covenant forever. Holy and awesome is his name. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All who follow his precepts have good understanding. To him belongs eternal praise.
Thanks, Frank. All right. Now, I've given you a bit of a bum steer by handing out orders of service that Andrew printed and folded up, because Karan, who is going to share with us a bit later, had 3 songs that she really wanted us to sing. So we're going to, Tim has set them up for the projector, so, and David is going to sing them for us. We're going to sing all 3?
Sure.
Give it a go?
Up to Karan.
Up to Karan. What's up
We
with Karan?
learned them this morning for her, so.
Okay. So I'll hand it over to you. Mike, we don't need a microphone, do you?
Do you want a mic?
All right.
He doesn't need a mic.
Here we go.
Which one's up first?
All things beautiful.
And sing with your heart and with your eyes, just not with your mouth.
If they're masked, they can sing.
Oh, if you're masked, you can sing. That's right.
You ready? All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bud that sings, He made them glowing colors, He made the tiny beings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. The purple had a mountain, the river running by, the sunset and the morning that brightens up the sky. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. He gave us eyes to see, lips that we might tell, how great is God Almighty, who has made all things well. All things And there are 2 dogs here too.
Yeah, I've got to mention we have some guests with us here. We have Splinter and Sammy. I don't know if the camera can get around to Splinter and Sammy. They're, yes. All creatures. Oh, God, them all. Beautiful.
So if you do know them, sing along. I learned them this morning.
Thanks, David. That was beautiful. Thank you, Taras. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Karan, for the choice of that song. Beautiful, beautiful. You know, when I was 20, I fell off the roof of a building and broke my leg. And I was on crutches for 13 weeks. And I remember the nurse, when I came to from my stupor of having the final operation to have the pins and rods removed from my leg, she said, "Oh, you can walk now." And I'd completely forgotten how to walk. And getting back together and meeting together is a bit like that. We kind of know in our heads how to do it, but I thank you for your patience and grace as we begin to relearn how to get together again on a Sunday. We'll get there. We'll remember. It's a bit like falling off a bike. Once we've learned how to do it, we'll learn how to. We know how to do it again. So, thank you. We now would normally have a time where we'd have some open sharing. I still want to give that opportunity here, but we're going to have to do it by coming up to the microphone and sharing. And I thought I'd start off with, look, one of my most vivid memories from last year, just before lockdown, was having a knock on my door, and there was Auntie Carol Selvaraja. She'd cooked up a big feed for me of russom, which is one of my favourite dishes, and she dropped it off, and Anu, her daughter Anusha, brought it over with her and Sarah, and she delivered it to me in love. And it was only how many days after that? Yeah. So it was not long after that day that she took ill and passed away. And it is the first time that Anu's been with us since then, but in the intervening time, Carol was awarded an Order of Australia medal, acknowledging her service to the broader Australian community. She was one of the first ethnic chefs, I think we call it, on TV, and she certainly led the way with her show, showcasing some of the great cuisine we had in this country and the contribution that immigrants were making to this country, particularly through Cabramatta. So I'll invite Anu up to tell us a bit about that award.
I'll get all the screenshots that I have because it's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Yes, because we've actually been living in Australia now for 43 years, and Mum started by being a school teacher in Armidale. We had a very good friend who wrote history books in Malaysia, and she knew we wanted to migrate. The reason why we migrated was the schooling in Malaysia was going to be just in Malay, which is a language that we learned. But we had English language in our family for 200 years, and I said I'm not going to let that English language leave. Both my parents had actually studied in Australia before, so they sort of like broken in the Australians, I suppose. My dad had studied in Melbourne at university, and my mum had studied in Perth in MLC. So they knew Australia before and had lots and lots and lots of Australian friends. My dad did a lot of consulting work. And they sort of knew it was a good place. Both my grandmothers were still alive, so it was just a quick flight back. So we chose Australia to be our country of where we decided to stay. When we first came, there was just 5 of us every Christmas, which was like very scary. Because coming from families of 30 and 40, as Carly would know, like families are massive, and suddenly when it's just the 5 of you looking at each other, it's just very, very difficult and very hard. But you know, we managed and survived, and we made our home Australia. And as my father said, he was a geneticist, you have to mingle and you have to mix, and you just have to get stuck in there and just be part of everyone. So we did, you know, and that's why I've got such an Australian accent. This is not put on, this is how I became. But just to let you know all the things that Mum did, she started off as a school teacher, like I said. She taught ESL English in Armidale. And then after that, she wanted to try her luck in cooking. She said she'd been teaching since she was 20, and it was just enough. She wanted to try something else. My mum learned to cook from a Chinese nanny that we had from the time she was born.
Oh.
And she was the most wonderful woman. She became like my second grandmother. And her life first started off as a baby ama, and she was married in China. But as soon as her husband passed away, she lost all status, and she wanted to try another life. And she knew that they were Chinese young ladies coming across to Singapore to actually learn to look after people's children, because people were working and they needed someone to be at home. So she came across as a Chinese nanny, She was strictly white on the top and black pants, and that's all she wore till she was 60. She never wore any colours till she turned 60, and then my mum took her to a tailor, and she got new outfits which had slightly coloured on the top, but she still had her black pants. Hair was slicked back and in a tiny little bun. But she had the best talent of if she tried any food, within 1 minute she knew the ingredients. And then she became the envy of all the other households, and they wanted to steal her from my mum and my grandmother. And she refused, because by that time she had brought up 2 kids, 5 kids, 3, she brought up a whole family and she had become part of us. Her children were still in China, but my grandfather helped bring her children across. So that's how come we sort of got so used to having such a multicultural family, and it was just that's how we grew up. But just to let you know, Mum's Medal of Order of Australia was for service to hospitality industry and colouring and tourism. But the things that Mum had done, she was a freelance writer-editor since 1989 of Australian Gourmet Traveller, Wentworth Courier, Kitchen Courier, Food Travel, Singapore Women's Weekly, Malaysia, Straits Times, Malaysia, Feast, SBS Magazine, The Village Observer in Lane Cove. She also consulted with Lion Nathan, with IAM Foods, Burns Phillip, Goodman Fielder, various television appearances, Asia, Australia, as well as participating in food festivals, masterclasses, charity functions, founder of Cabramatta Tours. I actually helped Mum do Cabramatta Tours, and we used to have such an awesome time. We'd either meet people over in the north side, and we would drive or catch the train and come across. We would then split up into 2, walk around all the aisles and tell people about the vegetables, the food. I had very strict training, the best training I've ever had for any job in my life. And it depended on me in making sure I had everything correct, because Mum would make me do the tours with 4 or 5 times on my own. So, and every time anyone came back with any questions, I'd get this dirty look like, I told you about that information. So even now, I can actually do a Cabramatta tour on my own, because I know all the types and everything. And I still repeat it, I have offered it to, Sarah's headmistress was an ex-school colleague of my mum's, and our church as well. And anyone here that wants to go to Cabramatta, I'm sure Carly won't have to go because she won't have anything. But I'll be more than happy to take everyone here as a group. We can all go by train, and then I know most of the restaurateurs and stuff like that there. So anyway, Mum was also a judge in the Sydney Royal Easter Show, Agricultural New South Wales. She was a volunteer, and she cooked for the Laloon Society, which is a cancer foundation, where she had her dinners auctioned off, and we had lots of people, rich people, living over in Double Bay and everything else, having dinners, and then Mum would turn up and cook chili crab, her famous extraordinary pork, and I used to go and help because I did do hospitality, so whenever there was waiters or the people didn't have enough cutlery, I was always called at the last minute to go wash up while the waiters that used to turn up from Stedman's. So it was always a very exciting life that I had with Mum. I would never go back and, regret anything that I did. Mum had a very high standard that she had all of us live up to. And it was good because it steadfast me in lots of situations. Mum was always a very supportive person, so if any one of us needed anything, she was always there. She would drop everything and help us. My father passed away in 1996, so that's 24 years ago, and she managed to hold our family together, did all the consulting. She was also invited to James Beard House in America, which was the first ones to go from Australia, the first Asian woman to go from Australia, so that was very cool. She also cooked in the QE too, and I was invited to go. But I didn't have to do any help at all because all of the chefs that were there in the next level down were all from India and Nepal. So they were just like bowing down to her. So I was allowed to walk in the deck every day for 7 days, which was very, very, very not exciting. But I just had the most wonderful life with my mum, and all to do with food, and I met great people like Kylie Kwong, Lindy Moran, and everyone. But I treat them all the same, all the same. But thank you so much. But yes, I'm so very proud of what Mum did. Yes.
That's beautiful, Anu. Thank you.
Andrew.
Anu.
Andrew, is that
Sorry.
this one on too?
They're both on, yeah.
I reckon they've gone a
That was
bit.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I think one of them just stopped, but
Yeah. Of course, the day it's the muggiest, the aircon gives out, doesn't it? It wouldn't be Wayside if everything worked perfectly. So thank you so much. Thank you, Marty, for sharing that. Earth's loss is heaven's kitchen's gain, right? I wouldn't mind being in that banquet room at the moment. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. We're going to get chances over the next few weeks, hopefully, to be able to get up and just share from our hearts about where we've been captured by the awesome. Thank you, Marty. Read Marty's Facebook post on the weekend. A bit inspired by last week's sermon. He wrote about the last time he ever went camping with Narelle. It's when you walked 8 kilometres in the wrong direction in torrential rain.
Inspired by your good self.
Beautiful. If my mistakes can inspire others, then I'm glad we will continue to make mistakes. Karan, are you going to come up and give us our reading, please? Thank you. The Gospel today comes from Mark chapter 1, verses 21 to 20. I'll hold it.
Mark 1, 21 to 28, the words of God. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. The people were amazed at his teaching because he taught them as one who had authority, not as a teacher of the law. Just then a man in their synagogue who was possessed by an impure spirit cried out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." "Be quiet," said Jesus sternly. "Come out of him." The impure spirit shook the man violently and came out of him with a shriek. The people were all so amazed that they asked each other, "Was this a new teaching? And with authority. He even gives orders to impure spirits, and they obey him." News about him spread quickly over the whole region of Galilee. End of reading.
Thank you. Thank you. Just as Jesus approaches, you hear the question, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" How often is it that life is calling towards us and all we can ask is, "Have you come to destroy it?" How often are we about to have life and that a voice within us cries, "No, I don't want this"? Where does that voice come from? So often in times not that long ago, I can recall when I first started doing the kind of work I was doing. People would think, "Oh, you're a person of religion. Come and do an exorcism." I don't know if you've ever been invited to one. They are terrifying, and not for the reasons you think. All right, it is, and I think my greatest fear is because there was a view that came out that somehow we're tormented by some force from outside of ourselves that comes and gets us. That if I could just say the right words, or if I had the right prayer or the right magic, all of a sudden, by some click of the fingers, magically that thing would be gone. Whereas I think the ancient mindset talked about, I think it's Aristotle or Plato or one of those guys, one of those old philosophers, talked about eudaimonia, which is kind of your good demons. That was happiness, good character. And so often, now in the modern way, we're getting back to that, where we say someone is being tormented or they're being tested by their demons. They're wrestling with their demons. Which is I think, a much healthier way of thinking about this, is to say that within us we have the better angels of our nature and we also have our struggles as well. How do we work through ways of listening to the voices of those better voices within us and drowning out some of those voices of self-doubt and self-limitation, or that are in there as well. How often is it that life comes to us and yet we're tormented by the question, have you come to destroy me? Where has life come for you and yet you have not heeded its call? I'm really honoured to invite Karan up. She's going to come and tell us a bit about her story. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to invite her up, and we're in for get ready. Who knows where this will go? I know wherever it goes, it'll be fun and it'll be good, and we're really looking forward to hearing from what you've got to say, Karan. So let's give her a big hand. Come up. Is that weird?
Good morning, everybody.
Can you all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I'm Karan. A lot of you know me, a lot of you don't. Thank you, John. I'm actually going to speak from notes because public speaking is not really one of my strong points. When John asked me to speak today, I chose today because today would have been my granny's 105th birthday.
Wow.
She was so beautiful, I miss her so much. So I brought her picture with me to sort of give me strength, make me a bit braver than what I really am.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not always this brave. To be honest, the last 3 weeks I probably shed enough bricks to expand Wayside without having to raise $10 million. Okay, here we go. I was always a believer in Christ, and each time something has gone wrong in my life, I've always told myself that God would never give me more than I could handle. That belief got me through so many things in my life. I haven't always lived a Christian lifestyle, but I've mostly been a good person. Going to church, saying grace before meals, preaching to the unconverted, none of that makes me any more of a Christian than if I sat in a garage and called myself a car. It's about how you treat others that makes you a Christian. 12 and a half years ago, I woke up and life as I knew it was gone. The rug was pulled from under me, and as I opened my eyes that morning, I had no idea of the nightmare that was to change the life I loved into just an existence that I didn't ask for and didn't want. I don't want to go too much into what changed my life because it's hard for me to talk about and I can't afford to be sued. But I'll briefly tell you the main points because it's relevant to how my relationship with God changed. I may also get a little bit emotional because some of this is very, very raw for me still. One day I was arrested, and yes, I broke the law of the land, but morally I was right and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Anger burned within me at the injustice, and in some ways I became very negative in my thinking. I was mostly a positive person before that and saw the best in most situations. But when it came to trusting anyone, especially authority, I became very negative. But as I went through a very, I'm sorry, my leg's starting to shake. But as I went through a very unfair court case, including harassment from various authorities and others, and I started to become mentally ill and paranoid, I always told myself that God would never give me more than I could handle. For the next 3 months after being arrested, I floated through life in a daze of what the hell just happened. But I spent a lot of time in the safety of the church. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard years ago that the police couldn't enter a church to arrest you. So I spent a lot of time there with God. And I must admit, I did sit there having a laugh at the police that I thought might be outside waiting for me. I think even God laughed with me a few times. Then one day I was unfairly arrested again. As I spent the night in a cell, I reminded myself over and over again that God would never give me more than I could handle. He wants me to go through this injustice for a reason, and I just have to be patient until he reveals what that reason is. I loved him and I trusted him, and this was in his hands. For the next 8 months, I repeatedly told myself that God was with me and I wasn't alone. Finally, my sentencing day came along, and I prayed to God to be with me, to protect me, and to help me hold my dignity no matter what the outcome was. The outcome wasn't what I hoped for, but God would be there and I would get through the sentence with his help. It wasn't a prison sentence, it was community service, but I was still pissed. I lost everything in life. I lost my child, my home, my family, which turned out to be no great loss, my possessions, my employment, my friends, and my sanity. My beloved granny passed away too during this time, but still I believed that God would never give me more than I could handle. I'd always wanted a mother who loved me, who was proud of me, and who would look at me with love-filled eyes and be proud that I was her daughter. I'd never had that before, but then one day God sent me the mother I'd always wanted and never had. My heart was full, and every day I thank God for a mother named Casa, who looked at me with love and who was proud of me. She called me daughter and I called her Ma, and we loved each other unconditionally. Casa was the Ma that I adored. She was the light of my life, the one person who never changed the rules and never had conditions for me. God would never give me more than I could handle, and even though he'd come close a few times, finally he'd given me what I had always wanted. He gave me a mother who adored me and who I loved with all my heart. My existence became a life again, and life was good, and I thank God every day for that. Then one day I woke up and life changed back into an existence again. After 3 years of being adored by my Ma, she had unexpectedly passed away. As I looked at her laying there lifeless on the bed, my devastation was absolute. My anger was uncontrollable, and most people steered well clear of me because I was a ticking time bomb. God had finally given me more than I could handle. I stopped going to church, I stopped praying, I donated my Bible, I started doing what I wanted to, and in my final conversation with God, I told him exactly where he could go, and I walked away from him filled with resentment and anger, and my slight negativity became complete and took over my existence. I started to always consider the negatives before I even thought about the positives, not just with authority, but with everything. That wasn't me, and I've often marveled at how people can like me so much when I don't even like myself. God and I were no longer on speaking terms, and there was no one else I could talk to about it. So for years I've wandered around very lost, very alone, and very angry. I didn't feel bad about my negativity. I can do what I want now, and I'll get into heaven anyway because I've already been to hell. The way I see it, when I get to the pearly gates, it will be me asking the questions because God has a lot to answer for. He's the one who made the mistakes. I trusted him and he let me down by giving me more than I could handle. Over the years I've been to church on and off here at Wayside, but it was more a social thing. My friends are here, it's a comfortable place where, as Reverend Graham says, they are not much like a church if I am not much like a Christian, so it worked for me. Eventually mobility and other health issues started to plague me, and I didn't go to church at all. The mobility issues just festered my negativity because now I truly am just existing instead of living. It had been just over 6 years since God decided that he would give me more than I could handle when COVID hit. COVID didn't really affect me as I was a self-isolated germaphobe anyway, but I was pleased that Wayside started to live stream their services, and I tune in most weeks, but only to spend time with the people who believe in me, even though I don't believe in myself. It hasn't been about religion for me at all. Wayside Live is just a social thing for me. Don't get me wrong, I take in every sermon, and sometimes I walk away thinking about the sermon for days and wishing that God hadn't given me more than I could handle, because Wayside is a happy place and I long to be happy with you all, but my negativity was a trustworthy friend. The negativity didn't change, it didn't leave me, and it didn't expect me to be anything other than my negative self. It was my security blanket. If you don't get excited, then you can't be let down. Expect the worst, anything above that's a bonus, that kind of thing. Fast forward to Christmas Day 2020. I hate Christmas. It's a very painful day of the year for me because it was always a special day for the people who used to be my family. But now it's a painful day that signifies loss and reminds me that I'm disposable. But on Christmas Day 2020, for the first time in over 12 years, I was given a gift that meant more to me than anything else in the world. Someone I have a lot of respect for told me that I was there as his special guest and took the time to sit down and chat with me and have a laugh. And it wasn't out of a sense of duty. That person was there with me because they wanted to be. Our pastor John knows a million people and could have chosen anyone in the world to be his guest of honour, but he chose me. And I felt 12 years of anger and negativity start to crack. In 12 years, even professionals had not been able to penetrate that wall of negativity. John had shown me that I was worthy, but I'm my biggest critic. I knew I had to start being worthy of that worthiness. I didn't know how I would achieve being worthy, but I knew that I would do it. I sat at a bus stop going home and almost thanked God for the gift that John had given me. But then I remembered God and I aren't on speaking terms anymore. And a part of me was sorry that God had did this to my faith when he gave me more than I could handle. A few weeks ago, it was 3 a.m. and I realised that I hadn't had a negative thought since Christmas that was not warranted. I hadn't actually made conscious decisions not to think negatively about things. It just sort of happened on its own. I'd been so positive without even making an effort. It just sort of happened when I wasn't looking. Sorry. I have always said that your words or actions could mean the difference between a good day and a bad day for someone. On Christmas Day, I was not given just a good day. I was actually given back my life. And I've kept an open mind about everything since then. A few weeks ago, Phil gave his testimony about how prayer got him through his darkest moments. I listened very carefully to his testimony and marvelled at how he kept his faith when I wouldn't have blamed him for leaving that faith behind. What an inspiration this man was to me, which is a big thing considering I'm usually uninspirable. I've had 3 weeks to think about Phil's testimony and I want what he has. I want to be able to pray and leave things in the hands of God and trust that he will do what is right. But God gave me more than I could handle and I can't trust him anymore. But after all these years, I'm starting to wonder if losing my ma was a test of my faith that I failed. But I'm not quite ready to start praying yet or making peace with God. I live a Christian type lifestyle most of the time in that I don't deliberately set out to hurt people and I do what I feel is right. But I'm not a Christian. I don't read the Bible, I don't pray, and I don't think about whether God would approve of me or my life. I hang around with the naughty boys, I swear I get revenge when needed, and I always joke that going to heaven ain't for me anyway, because I won't know anyone as all my mates went the other way. I often use humour to hide the hurt within me. I once heard that it's the sheep that stray, the fathers that God wants back the most. The smart-ass side of me wants to see how far God is willing to travel to get me back. But deep down, hidden in the back of my heart, I have one foot close to the line that I've drawn between myself and God. I'm wanting to place my foot over the line and take that first step, but I'm not quite able to bring myself to do it. What if He lets me down again? What if He gives me more than I can handle again? What if my heart breaks all over again? I can't take the risk. I can't put myself through that again because I know I won't survive. Back to Christmas Day. John was not a minister as we sat there together on Christmas Day. He was a mate who wasn't aware that he was doing anything special. A friend who had no idea that just his presence and him being his goofy self was literally breaking down 12 years of negativity and starting the healing from 7 years of hating God for giving me more than I could handle. I swear I've only got 1 and a bit pages left. I was keeping a poker face and trying to look like I was not literally changing before his eyes, but I was hanging on, and it's God punishing me. The air conditioning just came on. I was keeping a poker face and trying to look like I was not literally changing before his eyes, but I was hanging on and absorbing his every word so I could relive the moment later and maybe make a much needed change. He literally had no idea that he was creating change right in that moment. But the irony is that John the minister didn't put me back on the path to God. Phil the felon did. That's what I call a miracle. I'm not back on friendly terms with God. I'm not ready to take that risk yet, but I'm thinking about putting my toe in the water. And for me, that's a very big step, because usually when I scrub someone, it's forever. Even God. That's what happens when you've been hurt too many times. You never know when you will be the person to help someone on their way to finding their way back to God. You don't need to preach to them. You don't need to hand them a Bible. You just need to be a good person who shows them the kind of person they want to be. Just like what John did for me in regards to my negativity, and what Phil did for me in sharing his journey. The Bible says that God will forgive us if we are genuinely sorry. But what if the situation is reversed and God gave us more than we could handle and He needs to earn our forgiveness? What happens then? Maybe that sounds arrogant to some of you, but I don't care what other people think. It's a genuine question from a broken person who is too scared to be healed in case she gets broken again. In life, trust is a big thing. I trusted God and He let me down. My granny always said that if you can't trust God, you can't trust anyone. I've been let down by people who I loved and adored, but it was God who gave me more than I could handle. That's what hurt me the most. How do I come back from that? I can't pray for myself right now because I'm too mistrusting of God to give Him first. So I hope that my Wayside family will pray for me, that I might find my way and that God will give me a reason to go back to Him. And while you're praying for me, please thank God for John, because without his presence on Christmas Day, I would still be an angry, resentful, negative person who was not open to change. But most of all, please thank God for Phil, because without his testimony, I would still be floating around lost and lonely, and the thought of going back to God would never have entered my mind. Phil has a big day on the 8th of March. Please keep him in your prayers. And while you're praying for Phil, please remind God that Phil earned brownie points in having a part in inspiring someone who is usually uninspirable. So he deserves a break. There are good people in this world. You just have to wait for them to find you.
honesty is actually better than anything else because you've been so honest.
Thank
You
you.
see, and that's what is the best.
I feel so humbled right now.
Well, you've given us. I'll explain. Wants to say something. What's that, mate? Saying I can preach better than any of you guys.
What's that, Spencer? Karen did really well.
Yeah,
Yes,
you did.
Spencer.
Hey,
Yay!
you've given us a real gift, and there's a lot for us to think about, to process in that. What we got? Here we go. Here's Splinter. Can we just sing a blessing over you? Yeah, let's put your mask on and stand up, and if you know the words, join in. Now these words are going to be saying to you, Karan. I want you to just look at all the love that's here in this room for you, and we're going to be praying for you and for Phil on the 8th. We might submit this for his testimony to the court judge.
Let's do that.
This is for you, Karan.
Often that I'm lost for words, but I'm lost for words. Thank you.
Oh, so beautiful. Now, may you go in peace to love and serve the Lord. May the peace of Christ go with you wherever He may send you. May He guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May He bring you home rejoicing at the wonders He has shown you. May He bring you home rejoicing once again into our open doors. Amen. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Terry.
Some lollipop.
Yeah, thank you.
There's an offering bag in the front.
I make them at home for this set.
I make them
Yummy. You could probably